And then I have this little Santa over here that I cut out. So cute. I'm actually going to put him on another tray because I'm going to have enough on this cookie sheet here to place all of my snowmen. Okay, now I can get to the rest of my dough and peel it away and put it in my recycle bin or scrap bin to roll out again here in a minute. Okay, dip my spatula turner in the flour and scoop it under my cookie. Get as flat of one as you can with a very low edge here. And I'll show you the difference on some of those here in just a second. Okay. Let me see. I'm trying to find a thicker one. I don't like to have thick ones, so it's kind of hard to find one. Okay. I don't know if you can see it or not, but this spatula is quite a bit thicker here, and it's going to distort my cookie and be harder to get underneath it than this one, which is much flatter. Let's see if I can hold that. So now I have my tray of snowman cookies. This one looks a little bit close to this one. When it bakes in the oven, it may expand and touch and glue together. So I'm going to scoot him over just a hair. Using my cookie turner again. There. Okay. They are now ready to go into the oven. Something else I like to do is have all my cookies on the cookie sheet at once to be able to fill up my oven, as many as my oven can handle cooking at one time anyhow. Some ovens don't do well cooking more than one sheet at a time, or you have to rotate them out, rotate the cookie sheets to get even baking. I've got a fairly new oven, yay! And it allows me to bake several pans of cookies at once. And that's good because I only have to use one timer, and I can keep track of them all at once. So I like to fill up 3 cookie sheets to put in an oven at a time. That's just for me personally. You can cook 1 cookie sheet at a time, and I did that quite often. Okay, I have 2 cookie sheets ready, so I need to make a 3rd one. Now sometimes I'll have areas here that are empty and large, and I can take these smaller cookies and put them in the middle, because I know this cookie dough doesn't expand too much. It's not going to hit any of the edges of these cookies. So sometimes I like to put those little cookies there. But this one here, that's a little bit big. That's too close. They may touch and glue themselves together, so I'm not going to put that one on there. I'm going to put that on the cookie sheet where I actually have the Santa Claus that I cut out earlier. And he's right here. Okay, now all those pieces of cookie dough that I pulled up from the cookies I just cut out are right here. They were saved in my bowl. And I like to save them all up so that I know this was from my first cookie sheet of cookies. So I know that dough was rolled out one time. This was from the second cookie sheet of cookies, and it was a new batch of dough to start with, and it's only been rolled out one time. So I know both of these balls of dough have been worked with, rolled out the same amount of times. And I can put the 2 of those together. The more you work with your doughs, as far as like squishing them, rolling them out and stuff, the tougher your cookie dough will be. See, I'm just kind of trying to squish this dough together rather than squishing it a whole bunch of times like Play-Doh. I usually only roll out the cookie dough scraps about 3 times maximum, because they just get too tough putting the scraps together and rolling them out again. Okay, so these are my scraps from the first 2 pans of cookies I made. I've carefully combined them and shaped this ball of cookie dough. And I just want to re-emphasize, when you're working with any kind of baking tasks, make sure your area is clean. Again, I like to use a disinfectant wipe on my countertops, and I also have a piece of parchment paper down so my dough isn't on the countertop. But if your countertop is clean, you can put it directly on the countertop. Make sure your hands are washed. Mine were washed before I started today and thoroughly dried. Okay, now I've got this rolled out flat. These are my original scraps from the first 2 cuttings. I can take my plastic wrap and peel it back. And I'm just being really careful with this plastic because I'm going to reuse it. Scoot it out of the way. And I'm ready to cut more cookies out. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put these scraps together in my scrap bowl because I can use them one more time. And what I'll probably do is go ahead and mix them with new dough, and that helps them to go a little bit further in using the leftover dough. Scoop it under. And slide it off like that, or you can put it in your hand. I dip it in flour again. My dough is starting to warm up, so it's getting a little bit stickier and more fragile. So I need to make sure I have lots of non-stick flour on here. Okay, these I'm not placing on my cookie sheet quite as pretty as the last set because I have all different shapes and sizes. And that's just how they seem to be fitting for me on this cookie sheet. If you have a little bit of flour on the top of your cookie, I'll show you this one. See, there's a little bit of flour there. That's fine. You can either brush it like that with your finger, or you can get a pastry brush and brush it off, or you can leave it. It's not going to hurt anything. Okay, here's one of my little bitty ones. Put that on there. And now I'm down to the last one. Here's my scrap. See, I put all my scraps together in a ball. I'm going to put that in my reserve bowl. Cover it with plastic. Get my last hat. I think these are going to be cute. Okay. Now I have 3 cookie sheets full of cookies to bake. So I'm going to bake those in the oven, and we will come back. Okay, the timer went off on the cookies. We need to check these right away. Oh, perfect. They have just a little bit of golden around the edges anymore, and they'd be too done for giving away. So I need to set the camera down and get these out fast. And your little cookies may get brown faster than your larger cookies. That's completely normal if you're combining them all in one sheet. Okay, on my 3rd cookie rack, those cookies seem to be done too. They all 3 cooked beautifully all at once. My cookie sheets have been setting out for a couple of minutes, and that's good. You want to put your hot cookie sheets on a surface that is safe for heat. Allow them to set for just a minute or 2 to cool off slightly before removing them from the cookie sheet onto a cooling rack. They're too tender to move right away, and they'll have a tendency to break. If you allow them to sit for a little bit, they'll firm up just slightly, and it makes moving them a lot easier. There's two ways you can do this. You can either, if you're using parchment paper, you can just slide the whole thing off of your cookie tray all at once, like so. But then you can't reuse your parchment paper for the next round of cookies. You'd have to get a new sheet to put on there. And that's fine if you want to do that. Or you can scoop each individual cookie off of the cookie tray onto the cooling rack carefully. I'm trying to film and watch what I'm doing at the same time. It's not working. Okay, there we go. You transfer it to the cooling rack, and you would do that for the rest of the cookies as well. Carefully lifting them and transferring them to the cooling rack. And make sure it's on the rack. If it hangs off the side, like that one was for a minute, if it stays there, the cookie is still a little bit soft and the hat tip would tend to droop off the edge and you'd have a lopsided cookie. You want to leave your spatula flat as you move the cookies because they will bend. If you have it tipped up, you'll bend the edges of your cookie and they could break. So keep it as flat as possible. If you use parchment paper, your cookies just slide right off. I didn't use any kind of nonstick baking spray for these. They're just sliding off. Ta-da! And there's nothing wrong with that piece of parchment. I can use it again when I bake my next batch of cookies. Once your cookies are on the cooling rack, you want to just leave them alone there. Don't do anything to them. Allowing them to cool completely before you decorate them or move them. That way they'll stay nice and flat until you need to use them. They'll firm up and not lose their shape. There are our 3 trays of cookies, sugar cookies that we made. And that concludes cutting out and baking of sugar cookies. Thank you.